If you've seen the worst of a prison movie, it's in there. There's day-to-day high alert. There's stealing. There's stabbing. You do what you have to do to survive. My name is Derrick Clark. I am a business owner of GFIT, Training, Performance, and Empowerment. I'm an inspirational, motivational speaker. I also am a minister as well. I grew up right here in Greenville, North Carolina. I grew up in Kearney Park Projects, 1901A, Norcott Circle, where life began for me with my grandparents and with my mother herself, and playing sports, running around, man, being a typical kid, trying to get in everything that I can get into. Of course, sports, man, was something that kept me active in the community. Played baseball, basketball, football, all of those things, and played at South Greenville Gym. And at some point, my mother, she moved on the west side of town, and we started to take on life, which was another form of living, different from Kearney Park Projects. It's almost like leaving Kearney Park Projects, going to another city, but it was just across town, where a lot of, if you will, a lot of gangster old heads and hustlers, drug dealing was going on. And yeah, but I played baseball during that time as well. Yeah.
So it was actually rougher than the projects you were in before?
Seemingly. I guess I just wasn't exposed to the same activity that was on the west side of Greenville. And so I would say it was rougher, especially in hindsight. I would say it was rougher. Yeah.
So what year would have this been, and like what drugs were big at that time, and the stuff you were seeing as a kid?
Uh, I would guess 80, 81, 82 maybe, 81, 82. I always kind of reference it based on when I was started playing Greenville Little League baseball. And so I started playing there in 1983, so I might have moved over there in 1982. As far as I can remember, I would be guessing. I did see one time under a house some powdery substance. Might have been cocaine, might have been, I'm pretty sure it was cocaine now with my experience. I mean, yeah, pretty sure it was cocaine. But I do know, in hindsight, I do know growing up and learning some of the old heads from around my way, knowing what they were selling back then, heroin and possibly crack cocaine came in at some point.
Well, do you remember how did you first get involved with all that stuff? Was there a person who introduced you to it or something like that?
Actually, it was just after leaving baseball, after leaving college, I worked a few jobs, and of course, I had already been living in that environment. I didn't know really exactly what it was that I was that I was seeing, but I knew it was some drug activity. I've heard people speak about drugs, and I heard someone say they had a 16th, and I didn't know what a 16th was. All I know is this: I just wanted one, so I asked one guy about a 16th of crack cocaine, and he had promised me that he would give it to me, right? But he took his time, so I mentioned this to another guy. He said, "Man, you could have been asking me for that," and so he ended up giving me 2/16 of crack cocaine. And from there, I just, watched him and learned what to do, how to break it down, how to cut it up, put it in bags, and who to sell it to. And so it was, first it was observation before it became experience.
So you would have been like in high school during that time?
I was out of school. I was out of school when I was selling drugs. Yeah, I was out of school. I quit college, worked a few jobs, and then I started selling drugs.
Got it. So what was that like when you were first getting into the dealing? I mean, were you trying to build a network of folks and kind of get regular customers, or what did that look like?
It was almost like I woke up into a path that was already destined for me, if you will. Again, growing up and seeing it, it was something that I was used to observing, but not having the experience. And because I knew a lot of those individuals that were using drugs already, because as a youth, as drugs were in my house, and stepfather selling drugs, and people around my community selling drugs, I knew a lot of those people anyway, right? Even though I didn't know exactly what they were doing, but when I got drugs in my hand, it was like, again, it was like a path that was already destined for me, being that I already knew these individuals, their nicknames, and I used to answer the door for them when I was a kid, and so it was like, taking the mantle from someone that was older than me that was already selling drugs, and then ended up doing it myself, and so it was hindsight. I guess it was easy for me to go into what I was doing straight into selling drugs because I already knew those people and the environment.
So you kind of like took over for your stepdad with his customers? Or
I wouldn't say that I took over for him. No, I wouldn't say that. He didn't give them to me. I just knew that he sold drugs once upon a time, and I would be known as his son. So quite naturally, it was a relationship that was already built. Although they were older, I was younger. They were using. I was just observing, and they wouldn't have been his customers. They would just been the community customers for those that were already selling drugs, and so it became something just natural to do.
So how did you feel about it? Like back then when you were selling, did you have any qualms with what you were doing, or you just felt like, this is good for me, or?
Whether I felt that it was good for me or not, I don't know. All I know that is I could wake up and do what I want to do when I wanted to do it. Of course, quitting jobs. The last job was Dunkin' Donuts. That was a good job, but I was still young and I was still going out liking to party and stuff like that. And it's like, I couldn't do what I wanted to do. Like all I just wanted to do was go party. You know what I mean? And then I needed some days off, and sometimes I couldn't get those days off that I wanted to. And so, I would just stop going into work, and but the drugs gave me an opportunity to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, and it for the immediate start of selling drugs, I think it hid my failures. Again, I'm a former MVP for J.H. Rose High Baseball. Post 39 American Legion, former MVP baseball player. I played in the state games at Carolina on the all-area team in Greenville, Pitt County. Of course, going to college and playing baseball. I was a catcher, but when I got there, they put me in the outfield, so that felt strange to me. I don't know if that's the reason that I quit and ran, but I ended up selling drugs, and I think selling drugs helped hide my failures. It helped hide my embarrassment of being a quitter. Now people are looking for me. Instead of me being in the batter's box and people are calling my name, the next batter is a catcher, number 4, Derrick Clark. Now they're calling me Doc, right? Looking for me for selling drugs. So it quieted that noise that was probably in my head of being a failure.
It gave you like that power, sense of importance, and money.
Absolutely. There is a modicum of importance that we think we have. Quite naturally, it's that power, that authority. People are coming to you, and depending on what product you have, depending on how you are as a person, determines how many people will come to you opposed to going to other people, and how consistent are you out in that area, in the community, in the streets, out there one-on-one. How do you handle these people? And so I grew a clientele, if you will, not just because I had the drug, but because I was a person that if you will, cared about what they were going through, but yet still selling drugs to them.
You feel like you were good at competing in that market, like you had a lot like consistent loyal customers.
I did. I wouldn't be the president of my club, but uh, I stayed consistent. I observed that people like to go party. You know what I mean? Again, I quit the job because I wanted to go party. But then once I got into that street life, I realized that those that were hustling were going partying. I would stay behind. I would stay out there. I would be available. I would be seen. And when those people were continually coming, other people were going partying, right? So now I'm out there. I'm out there taking care of business.
So what would that be like for you? Would you be out all night, like on the weekends, waiting for people to call, or what?
I'm out all night. I'm out all night selling drugs, all day, all night. The one guy that I did get it from initially, he didn't hustle until the nighttime. So I realized I need to be out there in the daytime, right? Then when he would come out in the nighttime, he would do what he did, and then he would go off to the clubs. But that don't make sense. He's giving them to me. I have to give him the money when I'm finished with it. So let me stay here. Let me stay here while he's gone, and then I built my clientele up that way with consistency.
Are there any stories from like that time of your life that you look back on now and think like, man, that was pretty crazy. I can't believe I was in that situation.
It depends on what year, what era we're talking about. I guess the most traumatic one would be years after me initially started selling those drugs. It was probably on a much larger scale, name bigger than what it was then. Um, some guys came through, knocked on my door one night. I'm out all night in a house that I'm hustling in, and they knocked on the door. Knocked on the door. I opened up the door, and there it was. There it was, a barrel pointed in my face, a gun pointed in my face. And because I don't know, I was pretty strategic about what I did. I always kept something close to the door, whether it was a stove that didn't work, so you just couldn't just barge yourself in. It gave me enough time to shut the door, but yet I had somebody else in there with me, so he ended up going back, opening the door. So that was a robbery, an attempted robbery that was pretty bad, pretty tough. It was shooting inside of the house. I was trapped in that house, and then it was shooting outside of the house after we got out of the house. So that's one of the worst stories that I can remember. There are more, but that particular one right there where I was caught off guard and probably should have lost my life that day, broad daylight.
Oh wow, they robbed in broad daylight.
Broad daylight. Yes, sir.
So did they end up getting away with anything, or did they just kind of threaten you?
They did
what
not get away with anything. Didn't get away with anything. I had just taken my money out the house anyway, so I had been there all night, and it was, I don't know, it was one of those moments where nothing was there anyway, and then the other person that was there with me ended up wrestling with them. So, you know, that was an opportunity that they fudged up on. Didn't quite turn out the right way. But I got away. They got away. And we lived on to see another day.
Any other stories like that you would want to share, or just to give people an idea of like what your day-to-day life could be like at that time?
Well, let's just continue from that day. From that day, it was paranoia. It was high alert paranoia, because I didn't know who they were at the time. I didn't know, where they had come from at the time, and even if I did learn who they were, it was pretty traumatic after that. pretty traumatic after that experience right there. And so I had to always stay on high alert then. Uh, but in addition to that, because of that and other like incidents, I would find my way getting out of that lifestyle, man, because I realized that that lifestyle would catch up with me. Again, having gone through the experiences and more, I realized that I wasn't chosen for that lifestyle, man. But having at that point been in it for so long, I had nowhere to run to. I hadn't considered where I would go back to work at, even though I knew that I needed to get a job and get out of that lifestyle. Um, and so it was high alert after that experience. It was paranoia. Uh, Guys and I, we ran clubs and stuff like that, so people would come through the club. So I didn't know if the people that were coming to the club were part of the people that was part of the robbery. So I didn't know for sure. But yeah, there are a lot of stories, man. There are a lot of stories, man.
How long were you doing it? Because I might be wrong, but did you tell me before that you got out of it before the law actually got involved?
Uh, I would say from 19. I got out of school in 1990. I would say from probably the latter part of 1990 until 1998. I got arrested in 1998. But to answer that question about before the law got involved, I was doing way less than I was doing uh, prior to those stories that, the 2/16, right? And grabbing those 2/16 and then growing and then somehow just moving to another area and then being able to get drugs on my own and traveling back and forth to New York to get drugs and bringing them back and then setting up my own drug houses and having that that run of my life. Yeah, I would say that I called myself retiring. So I was no longer selling crack cocaine. I was no longer selling heroin or nor cocaine. When I got arrested, I was selling marijuana. I was selling marijuana and looking for a job. And so here is how I went to prison. A group of individuals from Greenville, North Carolina, some that I grew up with, some that I knew, some that I did not know, some that I may have dealt with, some that I did not deal with, uh, decided that they would go to the federal prosecutors and remind the federal prosecutors that those individuals, had forgotten about someone because they had already told on a lot of people, right? So that their sentences could be reduced and get out of jail early. Well, all of a sudden, they they told on us, me included, and one police officer started riding by my house. I was familiar with who he was. I grew up seeing him running around the community, right, arresting people. I knew who he was. Never knew who I was. In fact, he kicked in a door of mine that I was selling drugs out of. But I had closed the house down. Very strategic I tried to be. I knew that house had been running for a long time. Surely the police would be coming soon. So I closed that house down. I already had another house ready to open up. And so I don't know, a day or two after I opened this house up, they were kicking that house in, right? But I was no longer in that house. And so there was a warrant there. Warrant there had something, no arrest warrant, but it was a warrant there, information, I guess, with my name on it. That was, I don't know, I would guess and say that was 1995, 96 or so, right? Nothing never transpired after that, all right? And here we are at 1998. I'm no longer doing that any longer. I get that message. In fact, someone gets out of prison. Someone that I probably had, some combative times with. He gets out of prison. He comes to my house. He says to me, Doc, my nickname, They got a note with your name on it, and it's passing around the prisons, right? And he told me what they were planning on doing. I suggested to him that it would be impossible because I'm not doing that now, right? He said, but they still can come get you because of this conspiracy law that I had come up with, right? And all of a sudden, back to this police officer, he started riding by my house. Well, me, feeling very, very, very tough, feeling like I've got it all behind me. There's no way that this can happen. I went out in the middle of the street and I approached him. I said, man, why you keep riding by my house? And he said, I'm doing what I do. I said, man, tell those guys, man, to shut their mouths, man, because I heard about what they're trying to do. Ain't nobody doing nothing. And he said, why they keep calling your name then? Got in his car, pulled off. From that day forward, riding by my house almost every day. Riding by my house almost every day. I wasn't panicking. I'm selling marijuana. I'm not selling crack. I'm not selling cocaine. I'm not selling heroin, right? So I think it's impossible for them to come and get me for something that I had done 2 or 3 years prior to May 1st, 1998. So yeah, I was, if you will, out of that game. Mm-hmm.
So how long was it until they came back then?
He might have started riding by my house in April, April of 1998. The indictment would say so because the information, not the indictment itself, was signed on April the 21st, and then May 1st, 1998. They kicked my doors off the hinges. 6 o'clock in the morning. I thought I was going to get up and just have a typical day of selling marijuana. And there they were. ATF, FBI, and all the letters that you can name to come to get little old me for something that they said I did 3 years prior. Guys who had already been serving time. Some on their way home.
So what happened next?
What happened next is he comes walking through the door looking like Black Jesus with his badge on, right? I didn't say much to him. I just looked at him. I said, well, maybe they're here for marijuana. But then when I got down to the precinct, I saw 2 other guys that they did the same thing to that very morning. They were looking for 6 of us, but they only found 3 of us that morning. And once I saw them, I realized that this is deeper than my marijuana, right? And then we sat around, and then we realized that they had arrested us for a conspiracy for something that they said we did. Not saying that we hadn't done something, but we got locked up for what they said we did.
So how long were you in jail? It was prison, right?
It was prison. I ended up going to prison for. First, I got initial 360 months. That was 30 years initially. Our sentences ranged from a life sentence. One of my guys had a life sentence. 2 of us had 360 months. One may have had, 240, something like that. It was 6 of us, but it ranged from life sentence to maybe, 24 years or maybe. But then while we were on our initial appeal, we were able to put in an appeal to the sentence, right? We wanted to vacate the verdict itself, the guilty verdict itself, but we ended up putting an appeal in. And while we were on appeal, a case called the Apprende came out, and that gave us an opportunity to give our time back. So one with the life sentence gave his life sentence back. Me and another one of our brothers, we had 360 months. We were able to give our time back, some of our time back, and so I went from 30 years to a 20-year sentence, and then I ended up serving 16 years and 11 months on a 20-year sentence.
So what are some things about like that prison lifestyle that are interesting that will like surprise people?
I don't know, man, what would surprise anyone. There's so many stories and so many movies about prison. And if you've seen the worst of a prison movie, it's in there. If you've seen, there's no such thing as the best unless you're talking about you have reformed yourself. It's in there. There's day-to-day high alert. There's stealing. There's stabbing. There's killing inside of the prisons. There is it's a life. It's a world of its own that you have to adjust to going in. I had never been to prison before. I'd never been to jail before until that day. But here's the deal: post-traumatic syndrome, post-incarcerated syndrome, man, it teaches us that when those of us that, especially coming from the community that we come from, it's not that we adjust to it or adapt to it. We have already mentally lived through these kind of traumatic experiences trying to adjust to them anyway. So there's, in our community, there's drug dealing going on. There's drug usage going on. There's robbing. There's stealing. There's chaotic. There's fights all the time. There's this thing going on in our community that once you get to prison and you get over that initial shock about not being able to go home, you realize that you have already experienced some of these everyday this everyday movements inside of prison. And so that's shocking, but yet it's already something that we've lived through anyway. But to go through it and to see it on a day-to-day basis, you go through it and to see that people are sometimes still, man, living that life inside of prison, that would shock you. I didn't go there, man, to not that I wanted to go there, but I didn't go there, man, to become a better criminal. I wanted to get my life together because I was already in the process. Without their help, I was already in the process of trying to get my life together anyway, because I know I was living a life that didn't belong to me. I just ended up because, again, the path, the destiny was already kind of marked out for me if I wanted to choose that way.
So the amount of continued criminal activity, I guess, in prison is kind of crazy. Like the access to guns or knives.
Well, you ain't got no
drugs
guns.
or whatever.
No
Guns.
guns. You gonna make your own. You'll make your own knife in prison, man. You make your own knife. You make whatever you do what you have to do to survive. Let me say that. You do what you have to do to survive. Whatever a person think that is for themselves, they would do to survive. For me, once the drug money ran out, and it ran out pretty quickly, I had to do what I had to do to survive. If it was just, man, stealing an onion and a pepper to sell to somebody that didn't have access to an onion and a pepper, right? You did what you did what you needed to do, whether it was selling Kool-Aid or I didn't gamble, but people gambled on a high stake. Did what they had to do to survive. Some of it was just recreation, but some people were surviving off of that. And then I found out how to, do some things that would probably be better access towards my future, which is fitness, which is training. I started training inside of prison, and I started getting paid for that, even though it was fish in a can. It might have been a bag of coffee. It might have been a book of stamps. It might have been go get me something off the commissary, or whatever it was. I found out that I didn't have to hustle that way, although I was a hustler already. I could find a way to hustle, to find a life for me inside of prison, which was personal training.
What was the social order like the social hierarchy in the prison?
Social hierarchy? Well, there are gangs. There are religious organizations, Islam, different facets of Islam. There is Christianity. There are people that click together because of their area. You have North, South, East, West. You have Midwest. You have states. You have cities. And depending on where you find yourself at, sometimes you can find yourself as you could be a Christian, right? Well, at least you grew up being a Christian, but yet somehow you became a gang member. So now you're a gang member and you're a Christian and you from, I don't know, say you from North Carolina. You from North Carolina and then you from Greenville. So there are four there are four different groups that you gonna associate with. And depending on what your association is and what the intensity is in the prison, this is where you find yourself at. So you got those four. Then you got somebody else from another city, somebody else from another religion, somebody else from another gang, and depending on what their association is and what their either verbal expectation is or written expectation is, as far as say as a Christian, my city is fighting. As a gang member, my city is fighting, or as a gang member, my gang is fighting, right? You find yourself in these contradicted social communities inside a prison, and then there is someone that might have been there a long time that has gained this respect, right? And then those that might be under him. But there are a lot of, you don't see them coming, but if you're there long enough, you'll observe them, and then you'll either have to find yourself in one group or another. All depends on what you want to do with your life while you're in prison.
So what did that process look like for you as you started to say, like, I want to get away from this type of lifestyle?
It was easy. I went straight to sports. I started playing sports, man, and as a believer, Christian, went to church. Uh, I don't think I didn't do that to escape certain groups, but I did that to maintain my sanity while in prison. And as I was doing that, I realized that there were other people like me that just wanted to maintain their sanity while in prison. So working out, you find a group of people that you work out with, and then that becomes something that you do on a daily basis or weekly basis, and then you guys become, you become friends, right? You become brothers inside of prison, and you eat together, all right? You go to church together and stuff like that, and you support one another, and you fellowship with one another, and so that's what it was like for me. And then as I, year after year, I gained more experience. I realized how to add this to my daily life. Then I become someone that can help show someone else that's looking for this same path. And so that's what it was like for me.
So you were already a Christian, but you feel like you took it more seriously, like once you were in prison, or
I
how did
was
that work?
I was not a Christian while I was out here. I was I was a hustler. I was a drug dealer. I knew of church. I knew my family came from church. But I hadn't committed myself to following Christ until I got locked up in the county jail, 1998, late August 1998. And at that point, it seemed like a no-brainer. Again, I was already making those necessary steps to changing my life, although it was a slow pace, right? Uh, it made sense to me to give my life to Christ right where I was while I had the time.
Did you have any kind of like experience that really pushed you in that direction, or?
No experience, man. There were guys, man, that came, groups that would come into the jails and also into the prisons, and they would come and minister. And one day or night, this group came in. This guy came in. He was preaching, and at the end of his, sermon or his exhortation, he asked, "What are y'all waiting for? What are y'all waiting for?" That question became personal for me. It almost said to me, "What are you waiting for?" And at that point, I realized, what was I waiting for? Why am I sitting here doing nothing when I can give my life to this man that died for my sin, this man that would give me opportunity to to eternal life, and not just eternal life, but a life that I can live in abundance while I'm here. Although it's a rough start, I'm gonna have to start this in prison. It still man became the joy of my life, man, and also, man, the soundtrack to me going through that prison experience.
And you found like the like-minded guys in there to kind of be in a community with as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. From Bible study to chapel services, man, to walking the track, communicating with guys about this new faith, man, that it seems to be like, what are you? Then you ask yourself, man, what was I waiting for? This is beautiful. In prison, this is beautiful. Why couldn't I have done this when I was out there living this life? Why couldn't I have done this then? And all the people, man, my aunts and the people that I knew that were, that were believers, I would say, man, this is what y'all been doing for all y'all lives. My goodness, man, this is sweet. This is sweet, you know, and to be able to experience that kind of sweetness, man, while incarcerated, says much more, man. That it's not about what you have, it's not about who you are. It's about who He is, man, and what Christ can do with you, through you, no matter where you are, man. And that was the beauty of going through the experience. That was the beauty. So, I just started reading the Bible, man, and I would find like-minded stories inside of the Bible, and in particular Joseph, man, being sold by his brothers. As you can see how I can correlate that, although those guys weren't my brothers, though I knew them, they ended up being a strong component to how I got locked up. Likewise, like Joseph's brother was someone, were people that ended up putting him in captivity, but yet he grew in that captivity. He ended up being somebody. He ended up finding his purpose, right? And so did I, same way. Ended up growing through that experience. Actually writing something now, man, called They Meant It for Evil, but I grew through it. And just so many stories in the Bible that I found comfort in, realizing that, Gideon, someone, man, that was, the less of his family, but yet became so prominent that he can help deliver his family, help deliver his people, through the grace of God. So I found courage through reading the scriptures, found courage through living that life while in prison, and that was the sweetest part of the incarceration.
So how would you compare your own mindset, like when you were actually dealing versus that 16 years in prison? I mean, that's a long time.
That's a long time. Comparing my mindset, opposed to dealing, like I said, when I was selling drugs, I understood the users, and I mean, they can talk me out of my drugs, man. Seriously, they could talk me out of the drugs, man. I found myself to be an important part of their daily actions, and back to the Bible, as Moses did, while he grew up and realized that his people were on the other side, but yet he wasn't yet walking in his calling. How he killed the Egyptians, right? And then he had to go run. He had to go off and run. And I just looked at that story and realized that, like Moses, he started living in his calling, but yet not being called to do it. Me selling drugs, I was a servant. I was giving people what they needed, but I was just doing it in a wrong way. I was doing it in a way that would destroy them. So although somewhere in my life I was a called preacher, 1993, before going to jail, a guy used to come through, right? And this time my name was being called a lot. This guy would come back, he didn't call my name. He called me to the end of the street, and he said that you're gonna be a preacher one day. You're gonna be a preacher one day. That's 1993 on 14th Avenue in Greenville. And then 1998, I find myself locked up in prison. I find myself 1999 and all the way back to 2015. I find myself in prison, remembering what this guy said, comparing it to Moses' story. Although he was starting it the wrong way, he still was called. Although me starting my life the wrong way, inside of prison, inside of captivity, I found my purpose. I found what I was called to do, and that is to preach, and that is to tell somebody about the grace of God, man, and how good He is, man, in spite of how bad we are.
There's a lot of those like redemption type stories, I feel like.
That is my story, man. Listen, that's the story that I love to tell. That redemption story, man. I can't get enough of telling it, man. This is flip, find life and purpose, man. Flip, find life and purpose. Turn your life over, man. Especially for me and anybody. Turn your life over to God, man, and watch God flip your life, man. And that's the only way to do it. That's the only way to find success and joy, man, and just the life that you want to live. Just to flip. A hustler would know what that means itself. You know, you take the money, you take the drugs, and depending on if you're hustling for somebody else, you take the money, you take the drugs, and you go before he comes back to get his money, you go turn it over one time. We call it a flip. I'm gonna flip this. I'm gonna flip this. All right. So it just came to me one day. Out here it came to me. Flip. I'm gonna flip this. I'm gonna flip my life, man, and get more out of it than I'm initially getting out of it now. That's the message, and so yeah, that redemptive story. Now my hands starting to clap now because we done got to the section now. We talking about God, and we talking about the life of Christ, man. So redemptive story. I love telling that story, man, because that's what it is, man. When you in Christ.
Well, so tell me more about your life now. Like, what happened after you got out?
I came home. I came home in 2015, April 2015, looking to see what life would be like on this side, and it was more shocking to come home on this side of it all than it was when I went in, because now I have a new mindset. Now I see life differently, and it probably took, I'm still adjusting. It took longer to adjust coming out of prison than it did for me going in. Let's go back to post-incarcerated syndrome. It took longer for me to adjust coming out than it did to go in, because what I had experienced prior to going to prison was the lifestyle itself. What I had observed, lifestyle itself. Going into prison, it looked familiar already. But now I don't have, on this new side, on this other side of how I see things, now I don't have that experience. So now my mind, I have to adjust. You know, it has to take the paradigm and shift to something differently. Because now I'm not coming home to sell drugs. Now I'm not coming home to have a big name in the streets and stuff like that. And so, of course, I'm bringing Christ with me, right? I got married. When I came home. That lasted 9 years. We just weren't prepared for this new transition that I wanted to live. We just wasn't prepared. So that didn't turn out the way that marriages initially should. I got divorced. Just got married May 2nd this year.
Congrats.
This time around, I think life was ready for two people that wanted to come together and live a beautiful life, live a life where we can support one another. I am ministering. I am speaking, as you know. We met when I was speaking. I have this fitness studio. I'm a baseball coach at CMS Middle School. I am a mentor. I go out, man, and I do the work. I do the work. Hopefully, I can do the work that doesn't have to become a redemptive work for the youth. Going out this weekend down in Stokes to the youth incarceration prevention. We're gonna do some speaking down there. They have this big event that they do every year. And including that work, I go into the jails, and I go into the jails on Tuesdays, Same jail, one of the same pods that I was in when I was in prison. I go in there on Tuesdays and I speak to the group that's there. Looking at bed 8, I used to sleep. I used to sleep on bed 8, and so I go into that room and I go into that jail and I speak to those individuals. And likewise, whenever any group or church called me to come speak, if I got time, I go into schools to speak. Uh, Hopefully to get ahead of the redemptive work, at least that portion of it, and so that individuals will understand that you can find the life that I have now, the life that people grow up in success. You can have that now without having to go through all of that, that tragic, that traumatic, those traumatic experiences.
I'm sure you feel like some of those things you went through, helped make you who you are today, right?
Of course, man, of course. Like the poem, man, or like Tupac song, man. The rose that the flower, the rose that grew out of the concrete, right? Sometimes life, man, gives you that, as they say, lemons, and we just learn how to make lemonade out of it. That's been my experience. I look at my life, I look at my childhood, and then growing up and being exposed to a lot of different areas. I call it the other side of tracks, the other side of the tracks, and playing baseball. I think I should have did way more in sports, but I didn't have the support. I don't think at that time people understood how much support I needed, right? And and sometimes that's no knock on anyone. It's just that people are living their experiences, and sometimes people don't live the through experience that I have. That I can go back now and see that there are kids that need to be supported in so many areas, in so many ways in their lives, and so that's why I do the work that I do. I don't want little Derrick Clarks to run out, man, and to waste their lives on something that's not going to benefit them down the road.
You were saying that you really understood the users, like the customers.
Uh huh.
What do you think were some of the things that they were facing that like drove them to want heroin or crack or whatever it is?
That could have been a numerous of things, man. I mean, from sexual abuse. I mean, from neglect. Uh, I imagine, and I'm sure there were. I imagine some of them were former athletes. They could have been trying to quiet down the noise in their head. Uh, they could have been trying to quiet down the fears in their lives, or fathers not being there, or mothers not being there, or verbal abuse, or expectations that weren't met, or just could have just started out as recreation and being in the environment, being consumed by the day-to-day activities. It could have been a number of things. Uh, I know people that you know from all the things that I've named: sexual abuse, neglect, sports. I can point out I can point out 10 people, maybe even more, that are now using drugs. I wouldn't say that that's why they're using them, but I can put all these people together. If I was doing a project, I can put these people together and realize that, hey, this could be the reason why they're doing it, right? It's not an excuse, but it's something that people do, right? I don't care what side of town you're on. These are experiences that people go through because of something. No one wakes up and says, I want to be a drug user and I want my life to go down the hill because I'm a drug user. No one wakes up to say that. Recreational abuse, neglect, hiding failures is something. We don't always know what it is, but it is something. And me being myself, then living contrary, wanting to serve them and wanting to save them. More so on this side now, trying to figure out how to help get them saved.
Kind of like back then, you were giving them a short-term help, right, to at least soothe their trauma or whatever, but still perpetuating that in the long term, like they're still on the drug, right?
Oh! They can sniff you out too. They'll sniff you out. They'll know when you're a sucker. they'll know when you're the one that they can go to.
Well, they knew you cared about them.
I don't know if that's how we looked at it then, but I know back then, and I'm not the only one, right? There are others that would have that same kind of compassion, but yet still need to be compensated for what they were doing, for what we were doing. But now it's easy for me to see. I know people that are still using drugs now that were using drugs when I was a kid. They're still out there. But I got that compassion for them now because now I understand. I realize how hard it is. Realize how hard it is, man. It was hard for me to stop selling drugs. So I imagine how hard it is for them to stop using drugs.
What else do you want to share about like any of these topics?
Christ offers the way out. I'm not sure if everyone will get out, although they might get Christ. Life is hard itself. Life is hard itself. But I do know this. Life is better with Christ. Life is better waking up knowing that God is on your side. And as Peter said, people all over the world are going through some of the same experiences that other people are going through. So there are no excuses, maybe still reasons that we cling to. Drugs aren't the way. That lifestyle is not the way. I got scars to prove it. I got a bullet in my shoulder right now that I walk around with since 1995, I guess, 96. For just being in that area, being in that environment. It's not worth it. We will waste our years trying to be what those movies tell us to be. We'll waste our years trying to be what those songs tell us to be. I'm a rapper myself, former rapper myself. It'll waste our years trying to live a life that will end up destroying us. Flip. Find life and purpose and get high off of that.
That's all I got, man. Thank you so much.
That's all I got.
Appreciate you.
That's it.